Hi everyone, welcome to the flow sessions. Today we will discuss about the screen flows. Okay, why we are using the screen flows? So if we want to create any UI components without writing any code, then we will use the screen flows. Okay, so before going to create the screen flow, I want to discuss about the flow elements. If we want to create a flow, we will use the flow elements. So these flow elements are divided in three groups. Okay, so particularly, so these three comes under, so we are discussing about the flow elements, right? So these are divided in three groups. The first one is interaction. Second one is logic. Third one is data. Okay, so these are the three types in these flow elements. So under this interaction, so we used to have the elements. The first one is screen. Okay, if I want to create a screen, then we will use this screen element. So if I want to handle any action, okay, if I want to handle any action, for example, when I'm clicking on a button, I need to handle some action. So if I want to handle such type of actions, then we have to use this action element. And then we used to have subflow. Okay, if I want to call another flow from one flow, then we have to use the subflow element. Okay, these are the three elements which comes under this interaction. And then in logic, we have assignment. Okay, if I want to assign any value to a variable, okay, if I want to assign any value to any variable or field, anything, okay, if I want to do any assignment, then I have to use the assignment element. And we have decision element. Okay, so if I want to create any decision, okay, for example, I have one criteria. If that criteria is meeting, then I need to execute one piece of logic. If that criteria is not met, then I want to execute one piece of logic. Okay, so then we can able to use this decision element. And then we have the loop. Okay, so as we know in Apex, we have loops. So mostly we will use the for loop. In the same way, if I want to use that loop inside the flows, we will use this flow element, loop element. Okay, and then we have collection sort and collection filter. Okay, so as we know, we have some collections, right? So collections will have the collection of data. So in the same way, if I have collection of data and if I want to sort the data or if I want to filter the data, then we will use this collection sort and collection filter elements. Okay, so these are the five elements which comes under this logic. So inside the data, so first we will have create records. Okay, so if I want to create the record, okay, if I want to create the record, so we have to use the create records element and then update records. Okay, so if I want to update the records, okay, if I want to update the records, then I need to use this update records element and then get records. Okay, so if I want to get the records, okay, so there will be some records already present in the database, right? So if I want to get that record from the database, so we have to use this get records and then we have delete records. Okay, if I want to delete the records, then I can use this delete records element. Okay, so if you see in previous session, in the introduction session, we have discussed about the DMLs. So we can able to perform both insert, update and delete, right? So if you see in data, we have these elements, create records, update records, delete records. Okay, so using these elements, we can able to perform such type of DMLs. Okay, so we have discussed about flow elements and then we have one more thing called resources. So in the flows, we have the resources. So what are these resources? This resource is nothing but a variable. Okay, so if I want to store any value, okay, if I want to store any value, we will use these resources. Okay, so here we have different types of resources inside the flows. So inside that we have the first one is variable. Okay, if I want to store any kind of information, okay, if I want to store any kind of information, either boolean, text, such type of information, if I want to store as a variable, and if I want to use that variable throughout my flow, I have to use this variable resource. Okay, and then we have constant. Okay, if I want to create a constant type of data, okay, so for example, I have a value, it should be unique throughout my flow. Okay, so then if I want to store that value, then I can use this constant resource. And we have formula. Okay, so if I want to create a formula, okay, so the output if I want to use in my flow, okay, so we can create the formula and we will get some output from the formula, right? So if I want to use that output in my flow, so we can able to create the formula. Okay, so we can provide some static values and we can get some output, or we can have some dynamic values, so based on that we can get some output and we can able to use that output throughout the flow. So such type of things if we want to create, then we can use the formulas. And then we have text template. Okay, if I want to store any text and if I want to show that text on the screen, okay, so then we can use this text template. Okay, this will be a template format, so where we can create some text and we can able to show the text. Okay, so and then we have some choice, so which is acts like a pick list, we can say. Okay, we used to have some values and we can able to pick any of the value from that list. So here we used to call that one as the choice. So we used to have multiple values, so we can select any of the choice. And then inside this only we used to have one more thing, collection choice set. Okay, so this is like multiple select pick list. So we used to have the multiple values and we can able to select the multiple values. Means we have, I want to select more than one value. Okay, then we can use this collection choice set where we can store some values and the end user can able to pick more than one value. So in that situation, we can use the collection choice set where we can store the some set of values and based on the requirement, end user can able to select the multiple values. Okay, so these are the flow elements and resources. And these are the main core flow elements and resources. So based on the flow type, we can get some more flow elements. Okay, so based on the flow type, we can get some more flow elements, but these are the core ones. Okay, so in any of the flow, these will be the common elements we will find. Okay, so now we will create a screen flow. Okay, so I have a requirement like, so I need to create a screen where I need to give some input. Okay, where I need to give some input for last name, first name, phone. Okay, such type of fields I have. I want to provide some input. So when I click on save, it has to create that record, that contact record, and it has to assign that contact record. It has to relate that contact record to the account. Okay, so this is my criteria. So we will create a screen flow. Okay, so I need to create a flow and I want to assign that flow to a quick action on the account page. Okay, so where we need to go? So I have already logged into the Salesforce. So here in the quick find, I'm searching for the flows. Select flows here. So click on new flow. So I'm going to create the screen flow. So select screen flow and click on create. See, I have get the start element of the screen flow. Okay, so this is the start element. So there is nothing and we have the end element. Okay, starting and ending of the flow is there and remaining things we need to create. Okay, and we have some elements, layouts, auto layout of free form. So here from start to end, it is connecting one line, right? So So it should be auto form, auto layout means automatically we should get this one, or free form we need to connect. So if you see free form, so we used to get like this, and we can able to connect from one element to another element like this. Okay, so if it is automatic, then it will give the start and end one automatically. Okay, and if you see here, so here we can able to see the elements, whatever elements we are using here, we can able to see here. And if you see here, resources. So as I said, if we want to create any resource, so we have to click on this new resource and we have to create the resource based on our requirement. So here I want to create the contact, and I want to store that contact. I want to relate that contact to the account, right? And that flow I want to store on the quick action. So first of all, on the account page, I want to show that quick action. So I need to store that account record. Okay, on which page we are storing that quick action. So there, first of all, to get that account record ID, we need to create one resource. So here I'm taking variable. See, variable, constant, formula, text template, choice, and collection choice set. So these are already we have discussed. So now I'm going to create the variable. See here, resource type I have selected as variable. Then we need to provide some API name. So here I want to store the account record ID, right? So we have to provide some API name which is record ID. So this should be, the name should be like this only. Okay, API name always should be like this to store the record ID. Okay, so record ID. So if I want to store any record ID, the API name should always be same. Okay, like this. And we can provide some description. Okay, so this variable will store account ID. Okay, description is not mandatory, so we can provide the description or we can skip. But in the real time, providing description is the best practice, so that people can know why we are creating this variable. Okay, and then we have to select the data type. See here, we have multiple data types. Okay, we can select either text, create a record, number, currency, boolean, date, date time, pick list. So here I want to store the record ID, right? Which is we are getting from the record. So here I need to create the variable of type record. Okay, the data type is record. If you see here, allow multiple values, collection. Okay, so as we know in Apex, we will use the collections to store the multiple data. Okay, multiple values. So if I want to store a collection of records, then we will check this checkbox. Or if we are storing a single value, then we can use this record. Okay, so we won't check this checkbox. And then object. So here I'm going to store the account record ID, right? So I have to use the account object. And then availability outside the flow. So either we are providing as the input or we are getting the output from this value. So we have to provide the input. It should be available for input. Okay, so now I have created a resource which is variable of type record ID I have created. Now I want to create a screen. So if you see here, if you click here, so you can able to see all the flow elements. Okay, see, add element it is showing. So here we have the interaction, logic, and then data. Okay, so here I need to use the screen. Okay, when you click on screen, you can able to see new screen. Here we can provide some screen properties and we can select some components and we can able to select some fields if present. Okay, and here the components means inputs. We have a lot of inputs and display text, different things present. Okay, so first of all, for the screen, what is the um, label of this screen? Okay, so here I'm giving like contact information. Okay, and the API name automatically it will take, and the description. So we can provide the descriptions based on our requirements and configure a header. So if you see here, this is the header and this is the footer. in between we have some space where we can have some inputs. Okay, so if I want to configure, means if I want to change anything, if I want to configure this header, so we can go through this configure header. Okay, so if I want to show this header, so we can show with this information, otherwise I can remove this header. Okay, and then we have some configure footer. See here, we have three buttons in this footer. The first one is pause button. Okay, so here we have the pause button, right? So if I want to use this pause button, I can use the first one, or if I want to save a different name, so I can use the custom label, or I don't want to show the pause button, so then I can hide this pause button. So as of now, I don't want to show the pause button. Okay, and here see, automatically the pause button is gone. Okay, so now previous and finished, so I don't want to use the previous button. Okay, so I'm hiding this previous button also. And finish, see here, so for finish I want to make it as a save. Okay, so I want to provide some input and then I want to save this one, right? So I'm using a custom label and we have to provide the label for that button. So we have some next or finish, right? So I want to make it as save. See, automatically this button label change it to the save. Okay, so like this, if we want to change anything, so we can use this configure footer and configure header if I want to change anything in the header or footer part. Okay, so inside this I want to provide some inputs, right? So first of all I want to provide the first name. So I'm searching for the text, which is text format, right? So just we need to drag and drop this one. So in these green lines, in between the green lines, we need to drag and drop. So here we have to provide the label, first name and the API name. Automatically it will take with the underscore and then require. So if I want to make this field as require, means without having the value in this field, if I don't want to store this record, if I don't want to save this record, we can use this require checkbox. Or if I want to store any default value, we can use this default value. We can store some default value. Okay, and set component visibility. So to whom I want to show this flow or to whom I want to show this component. So based on that, I can able to have some criteria here. Okay, so if I want to show it for all users, so I can select always. But so based on certain criteria, if I want to show this component, then I can select any of these things and I can provide my criteria. Okay, and then validate input. Okay, so whatever the input I'm providing here, if I want to validate that, so here I have taken the text element, right? So if I am entering numbers, so it will be a wrong input. So then if I want to restrict the user, then I can use some validate input. I can provide some criteria. It should accept only text like that. Then it will take only text as the input. So such type of validations, if I want to perform, I can use this validate input and provide help. If I want to provide any help text, okay, so while user entering the data, so if they are confusing what I should need to enter in this field, so without having that confusion, we can provide some help text so that they can able to know, so what is the value we need to enter in this field. So if I want to do such type of things, we can use the provide help. Like that we have multiple things inside this text component. Okay, so for last name also I need the text only. So here I'm mentioning as last name. API name is also last name. And as we know in the contact, that last name is the require. So here also I want to make like same standard. So I'm using the require. So remaining, I'm not mentioning anything here. And I want to enter some phone. See, I'm entering phone. Label also phone. Okay, so pattern. If I want to have any pattern, for example, if we are taking India, we can have +91, then we will have the number, right? So in the same way, if I want to have any form pattern, so we can use this pattern. So here we can enter our pattern. So placeholder text. This is nothing but a help text. Okay, and read only. So if I want to make this field as a read only, so without giving any without entering any value, only user can able to read that field. So if I want to make like that, then we can use this read only. And if I want to make this value as required, then we can use the required. And this is the default value. If I want to provide any default value, we can use this default value. Okay, so like that, not only these three fields, if we want to create whatever the field, okay, so we used to have multiple fields in the context, right? So if we want to perform, give input to any of the field, we can use all these fields here. Okay, so as of now, I want to give input only for these three fields, and I'm clicking on the done. Okay, so I have created a screen here, which is contact information. Now I want to create the contact, right? So I'm giving the input and I need to save that contact, right? So to save that contact, to create that contact, we have to use one more element called create records. So here we have to provide the label, so which is I'm taking as create contact. So API name also I'm giving as create contact. If we want to give any description, we can give. Okay, so how many records to create? I want to create only one record. So if we want to create multiple also, we can select. But as of now, I want to create only one record. How to set the record fields? Use all values from a record or use separate resources and literal values. So here I want to use the separate resources. So I'm using the second one. See, create a record of this object. So we want to create the contact object record, right? So we need to select the contact object here. And then set field values for the contact. So what are the field values we want to store? Okay, what are the field values we want to give? So we have to select those field values. So here I have the first name. So what is the value we need to provide for this first name? So we are getting some value from the screen, right? So we are giving input from the screen. If you see here, screen components, we have some input from the screen component. So we have to save that input which is coming from the screen to this first name in the contact object. So we are mapping. So whatever we are getting from the screen element, and we are storing that value in the contact object field. Okay, so I am using the first name of the screen element. Again, if you click on this plus, it will add one more field. So here I want to store the last name from the screen element of the last name. And then I want to add some phone. See, we used to have different phones here. So I'm using phone, which is business phone, and then phone from the screen element. So here we have different options. So I'm using the value. Okay. So here I want to relate the contact to the account, right? So I want to populate the account ID also here. So account ID. So here what is the value? So we are storing account ID in this record ID, right? So we have to populate this one. So record ID. So I'm populating ID of that account. See, ID. Okay. So if you have any other fields, we can add, otherwise we can skip it. Okay. So like that we can have the different, these are the fields in the contact, and these are the values which we are getting from the screen. Okay. And this is the value which we are already storing in a variable. Okay. So no need of saving, automatically it will save. So just click on here. So we have created a create record element. Okay. So now I'm save this record flow. I'm saving this one. So I'm giving like create contact flow, and automatically it will take the API name, and we can mention some description. And if you see here, we have some show advanced. So how to run the flow? So here in the Apex, we used to have some with sharing, without sharing options, right? So in the same way, if we want to use this with sharing and without sharing, we can use this one, either user context or system context. Okay. And then what is the type of flow? This is the screen flow. And source template, if there is any source template we are using, we can mention the template name. There is no template now. So versional flow, if we are calling one flow from another flow, or if there is any package flow we are using, then we can use that versional flow. And the API version of the flow, it will shows here. And if I want to show any um, see here, it is showing the current date of the flow and the flow name, right? So if I want to mention anything other than this, we can use this interview label. Okay, we will see what is the interview label. Okay, so I'm just saving this flow. So all these in advanced, so no need of mention anything here. So automatically we can just mention the label and the API name, so we can able to save this flow. So before going to activate, I want to debug this one. Okay, so it is working properly or not. So I want to know this one, so we can able to debug it here. See here, debug options. So latest version of the flow, it should run, and show details of what's so in the execution. Okay, lightning runtime. If the whenever the flow is rendering, so whatever the things we need to show, it will ask the details. And run flow as another user. So if we want to run the flow as another user, so as system admin, if I am running, if I want to run as any another user, we can use this one. And the input variables, if you see here, record id, so I have used this record id as the input variable. So here we need to use some, we need to provide some input, account id. So for account id, I'm getting the account id, so I'm using sales application. From there, I'm opening any of the account. So here I'm selecting all accounts. I can take anything. So this is the account id, right? So I'm copying this account id and I'm pasting here and click on run. See, it is asking for the input. So I'm giving some Sweta, Swaraj, and I can provide some phone number. Click on save. See, all done. If you see here, debug details will be shown here. Okay, so how the interview started. So who started? Okay, your username will be shows here, and then API version of the flow. Okay, and then transaction committed. Okay, so it will shows uh, either we are creating or updating records like that. And then screen, so contact information, so first name, so what is the first name we have given? Sweta. And the last name we have given Swaraj as the last name. And then phone number, so whatever the phone number we have given, it will take. So and then it is showing like selected navigation button. Next, create records. Okay, so create contact, so create one contact record here. So record id, it won't take it here because we are just providing input, but not it already it is not it related. Okay, so just here debugging it, and the first name, last name, phone, it will use. See, a record is ready to be created when the next screen pause or local action is executed, or when the interview finishes. Okay, so this is the record id which is created as a contact. So I have copied that one and I'm pasting here. If you know, 003 is contact. Okay, this is the contact object code. See, it is created the contact. Okay, so now I want to store this flow as a quick action, right? So I will create a quick action. So I'm clicking on the setup, object manager, account, buttons, links, and actions, new action. So here I need to select the flow as the action type and then our flow. Sorry, here I haven't activated my flow. First of all, we need to activate it. Otherwise, we won't get that flow here. I will just refresh it. Now I'm selecting action type as flow and then create contact flow. Standard label, I'm not giving anything. Label, some create contact. Okay, description we can mention, otherwise we can skip. I'm clicking on save. So I have created the quick action. Now I want to get that quick action here, right? So click on edit page. It's loading. So this is the highlight panel where we need to upgrade the dynamic actions. So here we can see the quick actions. So first I need to upgrade. So I'm migrating the existing one. So click on next. So for the layout, I'm giving account layout here. See here I can able to see all the actions. Okay, so now I want to add my action here, which is create contact. And we can set some visibility also. So we can have some filters, but here I don't want to have any filters. So click on done. So I'm making it up. Okay, so click on save. For the first time, we need to activate these. So click on activate. So as of now, I want to make it as our default. So for both desktops and phones, click on next, click on save. So activation is completed. Go back. So now we can see this create contact button here. So click on create contact. See, so I'm giving some Kevin as first name and Hart as last name, and we can able to give some phone number and click on save. See, Kevin Hart in the related list only it is showing this already created. Okay, so if we click here, this is the account. See, account name, it is related to the account. So like this we can able to create the flows. Okay, so this is about the screen flow. Okay, so this is about the screen flow. So in the next session we will discuss about another type of the flow. Okay, thank you for watching. Bye bye.